I'm Reed Fetters with UrbanWork, and I'm joined today with Becca, who is also a part of UrbanWork. Mm-hmm. Becca, thanks for jumping in. And our special guest, Dan Gerl of NextLaw. Dan, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So before we get into it, let's talk marketing, because one of the biggest things that I've learned from you, from being in the co-working, has been about marketing strategies that you use and billboards. Like, no one knows this. Well, maybe some do, but we had an UrbanWork Tacoma Rising billboard for 2 months, and I just wanted to do it because I thought, you know what, let's do it and see what happens. And we had 8 seconds of every 4 minutes, which most people never saw it, probably most likely. I did have one though, which was cool. But it was a really interesting thing to be able to kind of promote, and I got that from you. So billboards, run me through the billboards, because that's gonna be a hot topic today as we're talking to you. Like, how did you get on the billboards, and what benefits have you gotten from those billboards?
Well, you know, as I've gone throughout the country, I do a lot of networking, and I go to a lot of events, and I meet with a lot of attorneys from everywhere in the country that do what I do. And just about everywhere that I ever go, be it Las Vegas or San Antonio or Atlanta, Miami, all you see are attorney billboards. They're everywhere, and there's lots of them. Mm-hmm. And I'm not quite sure. I've heard some reasons, but for whatever reason, the Pacific Northwest is not like that. There's not nearly as many billboards at all. There are areas, and if you get on the freeway here and you'll notice you don't see a billboard, I think, from Federal Way well past Seattle. Mm-hmm. I think there are just laws that are in place that that prevented that. And for the most part, on the freeways, you only see billboards where there's Indian-owned land, and then they're basically the landlords for that. But what I saw here was an opportunity, because number one, you don't see any attorney billboards anywhere, or at least I didn't 4 years ago when I first got into the billboard game. And number two, during COVID, when I was working at my old firm, every day on the way to work, all I saw were empty billboards, or billboards with PSAs, or with Lamar's own advertising saying "rent from us." And I realized, well, this is an opportunity to get aggressive and go all in and get a lot of inventory for pennies on the dollar. So the very first time around, I negotiated a pretty good deal. I don't remember exactly how many it was, but something like 10 or 12 boards. I signed 12-month commitments, and I got rates that were well below what they normally would charge. And as I transitioned away from that firm and started my own practice again, I felt as though, again, in this market, it might not have worked somewhere else, but in this market where it's not in any way already saturated by attorneys, I actually had an opportunity to become the billboard, attorney. I did that with my old firm, and now I'm doing it now with my new firm. I think I actually have more boards now than anybody else, including my old firm. So for me, it's actually been very effective, and I've always seen it for what it is. It's not in the legal field. It's not. If an attorney puts up a billboard and expects to start getting calls right away, they don't know. They don't understand what the purpose of billboards are for what we do. It's really about brand building and becoming top of mind. And over the course of months and years of people seeing that and subconsciously being aware of it, and then they find themselves in need for a criminal defense attorney or a personal injury attorney, and then they start looking for that online, and they see me. They then associate that with the billboards that they've seen everywhere, and that conveys to them, oh, this is somebody that has authority. It really rarely works the way that you would think, which is somebody sees the billboard, sees the number, calls the number, and gets right through. It's just overwhelmingly, it's more a matter of memory. And so it's just now that we're starting to kind of see the payoff in that. Mm-hmm. After about a year of having these boards up, that we're starting to have a significant number of leads that when we ask, how did you find out about us, say, I've seen your billboards.
So as I'm driving on I-5 North, you're all over the place. How many boards do you actually have up right now?
So we're contracted with, I think, 21. 3 of them are in production right now. So I think 18 that are actually up and running.
And where are they?
And they're what they call perms. So they run, they run for the whole year. They're not the ones that move around.
Yeah. Where are they? You said I-5 clearly.
I've got a couple on I-5. I've got a few out in Puyallup, the South Hill area, and then the rest of them are kind of strewn about Tacoma and Parkland. And then there's one, interestingly enough, on Highway 101 between Olympia and Shelton. And it's the only billboard on that whole stretch of the road, and that's with a company called Pacific. So they have one just out in the middle of nowhere, and it's pretty, it's pretty impressive, to have something that just you can see it for a mile coming each way.
Oh wow!
Where are the new ones going? That you said you
So
got
the
for
new one,
production?
we got a couple that are, interestingly enough, they're right up off of Highway 509 as you're coming into town from, let's say, the Fife area. There's two billboards on either side of the freeway, and as though when I saw them, they were blank, and I thought, well, those need to tell a story.
Like a Dan sandwich
They
story.
need to be
That's what it sounds like to me. We don't have Dan
We
sandwich.
need to have a concept for this one. So I locked those down, and we got a couple of boards that are going up, and we'll wait until they come up. But I see a Golden Gavel award in our future for those.
Okay,
That's the intent.
Looking forward to that. So we definitely. I'm big on marketing. I'm not very good at it, but I like to do it. And with UrbanWork, obviously the podcast and things that we really, really, we love getting the story out. We love getting other people's story. I mean, the whole point of our podcast is to talk about businesses that have come to UrbanWork. Either they're looking to grow or they've grown. You're a success story. You've come to UrbanWork. You came a little over a year ago. You were one of our first tenants, which was funny. There's so many stories. Like, I love talking about this story about you coming in. But you were at a large firm prior, managing partner there, left, started your own firm, NextLaw. So branding being such a big thing for you, what does that mean, NextLaw? Like, where did that concept come from?
I literally was trying to come up with a name for my new practice, and I ran through a few other things. I wanted it to be, as opposed to what I'd done. First of all, I would never have my name be that. I mean, I went away from that at my old firm. I think that's kind of a dated concept anyway. The trend over the last several years has been brand names for law firms in states where they allow it. And that was my intent when I rebranded my old firm to represent the Puget Sound area. But I even thought on that, and I had some ideas about Northwest Law or things like that. And I thought that still feels a little too confining. What if I want to open an office on the other side of the state? Or theoretically somewhere outside of that area. I didn't want to be limited, and I just kept going, well, what's next for me? And I literally, I just heard it, like NextLaw. What is that? And then I thought, that's what people who need what we're doing are asking. I just got rear-ended. What do I do next?
Call Dan next.
Yeah. Well, and that was that. I'll tip my cap to a guy named Rob Coleman with my digital agency, because we were trying to find a domain name, and he found that and said, well, this one's available, and I think that's a banger of a tagline.
Yeah.
Well, they're not. People are going to forget that. Yeah. But like your jingle, the NextLaw, call Dan next. I think it's really creative, and I love that. I love that story.
Starting over again, I had an opportunity to truly do things my way, and I have found that for me, that you got to have one direction, you got to have one vision. You can't have competing points of view, and that's difficult. I mean, I'm pretty. My ideas are pretty unique and pretty. I wouldn't necessarily say polarizing, but definitely not everybody's cup of tea. And I like to take chances, and I find that more often than not, for me, when I take those chances, they work. But sometimes I want to do something that somebody else who has equal say may not want to go in for. And the only solution to that is I just got to be calling my own shots, and I got to be doing it my way. And the importance of personal branding as well as branding the firm, those are things that I'm able to put a lot more effort into now than I was before.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And speaking of when you were saying what's next for Dan, when you left your previous firm, I feel like we were next for Dan, UrbanWork. How did you find UrbanWork?
That's true. You know, it's funny. I was that time of moving on was rapidly approaching. It was right towards the end of the year in 2023, and I'm flying back from LA. I'd gone down there to meet with some of my creative partners that I knew were going to be crucial for my marketing success as I started over. And so I still had things that I hadn't resolved yet. Where am I going to be? And I knew that I need to be somewhere where there's people around. I don't do very well in the remote home setting. And so I was really wary of going back and launching it from my kitchen table. I knew that I needed to at least create the perception of office space and all of that. And I was just scrolling and saw an article in the TNT about UrbanWorks and about this space. And I knew about it because my old firm is literally 2 doors down. So I had seen this here, and I'd seen the motorcycles in the windows, and I'd seen the development that had been happening. And I remember seeing the amenity center before and being kind of jealous at the gym that they had there, because we had something that wasn't quite on that level where we were at. And the more that I looked into it and found everything that there was to offer, the more I thought that's really ideal for me. I'm going to be on my own for a while. I don't know how long it's going to take before we start to grow and get the leads and the clients coming in, and then I need to hire people to kind of support that. So for me, it was a natural move for somebody just kind of starting over.
And I love that you mentioned TNT, the News Tribune, which is awesome because I remember them reaching out and asking them to write that article, and then you coming, and I think if I remember right, you called me on the phone and you were actually here. And you wanted a tour right now, and we hadn't actually opened. And I was like, "Who is this guy?" I was like, "I love it. Let's go."
I was texting you.
Yeah, it's texting us. And it was great, and it was funny because the News Tribune, who is a tenant as well, they actually wrote the article and then came too, and we had talked to them about that. But it was great, and I mentioned talking to them. That I said, "You actually one of our success stories, which you NextLaw, coming in, moving up, growing into the building." That was due to them writing an article, part of them doing the article. So that was really cool. And then having them here as well. Like, I mean, do you remember when Dan, moving in and the fun part is the flexibility that I think that having co-working offers. You've had 5 or 6 different offices over the year. It
was like within the first month or two, you're like, I need more space. So we moved you over. And then a few months later, I need more space.
I need an extra space.
I need an extra office.
Because I added people. And then
That's right.
The thing that really kind of sold UrbanWorks on me was just the communal feeling to it. I kind of got a sense of that. And I thought, I just didn't want to be isolated. I'm coming from a firm where there was, upwards of 30 people working there, and to just go so abruptly from something like that to a situation where, I don't see more than 1 or 2 faces every day just wasn't going to work for me. I know that I'm most productive when I at least have people just kind of buzzing around. So that was the thing that ultimately had me settle on getting a space with you guys.
Well, you mentioned the amenity center, the golf simulator, the pool tables. That was phase 1. So when I got involved with J Squared about the co-working, they were working on that concept of what this is. And when I sat down with them, I said, we need to make that more communal. And the pantry and the concepts that are in the co-working, there's a reason why it looks very much like the amenity center, is because we were trying to build that communal space there to start and get people excited about being in the building. And it's great to see that has helped us, fill up the space, but also help with the co-working. And that's why the brands look very similar, because we're trying to build those communal spaces that bring people back and create engagement. And I love hearing that those things are noticed. And yeah, it feels good.
So when you decided that you were the type of guy, a trailblazer that needed to take risks and do things without needing permission, how critical was UrbanWork in kind of setting you up with an environment for your departure, launch, and sustainability as you started on your own?
It was important in that it gave me, the word you just used was stability. It gave me the exact amount of stability that I needed. And nothing beyond that. Mm-hmm. You know, it gave me the freedom to move around as I grew larger. Everything about that was very conducive to what I was doing and allowed for that. It's hard to imagine how I would have grown in that manner if I were like in a fixed, 1 year lease type situation.
Mm-hmm. If you were to give advice to another small business owner or entrepreneur about making that leap and starting their own thing, what advice would you give them?
Well, again, I think the first thing is it's very important for somebody to understand, to the degree that you can when you've not gone through it before, the difference between just kind of wanting to so-called be your own boss and be an entrepreneur. Because the whole idea of, I want to go out on my own so I can have an easy life and I don't have to answer to anybody. Well, that's a misnomer. I mean, and by the way, you're not your own boss. Everybody that hires you is your boss. Mm-hmm. You're at a point where you realize you're unemployable because you have a goal of doing something that you can only accomplish that goal by being on your own. So for me, I was working for a law firm 15 years ago, and they were great people. And to this day, I'm very close friends with them. But after 3 years, I just wanted to have my own brand. I wanted to design my own logo. Mm-hmm. I wanted to do my own thing for no reason other than I had to do it my way. Mm-hmm. But I deserved to have to go through the challenge of, you don't have a safety net now. Yeah. And there is no 40-hour work week. So for me, it was much easier doing this the second time around just because, again, of all the lessons learned. But I would just say if there was somebody out there who, early on in their legal career who wanted to strike it out on their own and everything that we're talking about is resonating and they're like, yeah, that's 100% speaking to what's going on in my heart. Well, again, for me, some people love to just be on their own. They love to be in that remote thing, and if that works for you, that's great. That's a good way to keep your costs down while and double down in other areas like marketing, things that I think you have to, you just, social media, things like that. But for me, I enjoy, if I had an opportunity like this when I first went out, back in 2013.
This, what do you mean by this? UrbanWork?
Like the UrbanWork,
okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Rather than what I did the first time around, interestingly enough, it was a UrbanWork lofts. Yeah. If you know what that is. Yeah. Downtown, and that was good because of the costs, the low costs. But you were literally like in a almost like one of those pens that they have at the fair. Where the livestock are, and that's what you got for the money that you paid. There was no collegiality. You had this small little space, and then you graduated from that. But if there was a situation like this, which I think it was pretty much on the same price point, but where you could have as you're walking through the hallways, you're passing by other businesses. You can strike up conversations with people, maybe network a little bit. Let them know who you are and what you do, and then meeting people over at the coffee area, whatever. That would have been way better for somebody just starting out. And most of these people are entrepreneurs. I from what I've gathered, and we all have something in common there. So that's what I would say. And I would also say to take advantage of the monthly events that you guys put on. I haven't been able to do as much of that just because I've been so busy with other things. But I think those are great. The ones that I've been able to go to, those are great opportunities for entrepreneur, no matter what field you're in, to connect with other people out there, compare strategies, and make connections.
I think it's been an incredible experience for us, and we picked up a lot of just really cool tricks of the trade and some good ideas that we can utilize on our end. So, yeah, I'm glad we're still working together, and I have a feeling that's going to last a long time. So, Dan, thank you for talking to us today. Really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Well, thank you.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.